Alright guys, hello everyone. I hope we are having a good day so far. As you can see, I am in the living room. I was in the bedroom last time and I figured I'd move in here. I was hoping for natural lighting. There's a window behind you, but because of the rain, we're not getting much light in here, which is unfortunate because that means I have to use downlighting, which means it looks a little bit crappier. But nonetheless, today is our Q&A episode. So this has been a long time coming since I said I would do a Q&A podcast. Poor form for me putting it off this long, but here we go. This will be asking questions all the way from when I did my last or first Q&A sticker. So last night, I think I'll quickly just touch on, last night I had the Hybrid Invitational. A lot of you would have seen on my story. That event was amazing. The worst part about it is they're only going to do it yearly by the sounds. I reckon Slats could do that every 6 months and it would be still even more popular every single time. So that was great. Incredible atmosphere for the invitational race at the end. And man, it was actually also very, very upsetting because I wish I was racing and I was just feeling all sorts of things last night. But let's get to the Q&A now. I need to stop rambling. Our first question from Ranet. Our first question from Ranet. Our first question from Ranet. He asks, what are the pros and cons for metabolic hypertrophy training in field sport athletes? So I hate to say it because I've sort of been shutting down a couple of questions from around it the last couple of weeks, but there is no such thing as metabolic stress hypertrophy training. It has been proposed as a way of stimulating hypertrophy many times, but any of the observed changes in muscular diameter have just been from swelling. So that is simply just a process that is caused by the inflammation and then muscle damage from all of that metabolic acidosis that leads to a lot of swelling in the muscle. So pros, fatigue maxing, cons, fatigue maxing, and you are technically wasting your time if you're trying to get stronger and bigger because it simply just does not stimulate either of those because you're going to have a hard time generating metabolic stress with heavy loads and also a hard time using your high tier motor units because you're going to be so fatigued. So that's our first question, all wrapped up. On to our next one. We've got a question from Fundamental Physiology, which is most likely the big Chris Matthews. He asks, what are the top 5 socials that give the best information? Number 1, Fundamental Physiology Instagram page. Come on now. That's me, that's Chris, that's Kaylee, that's Maddie. We know ball. Number 1, baby. Number 2, I've got a lot. After this, it's in no particular order. So, Chris Beardsley, Coach Rob. I have to put them together because their podcast, even though they don't have, that literally counts as social media. So their podcast is the Bible, High Performance Physiology. I have listened to every single episode and it's some of the most informative, indisputable stuff you can hear. It's not shitty outcome-based research chat, it's just they know ball, they know exactly how the body responds and what it requires for a desired outcome. So you cannot beat them. That's 2 and 3. Chris Beardsley, Coach Rob, Mouseri. 3 and 4. What I like at the moment. It's tough. Coach Mundy, he's really good. He's not like exercise science or S&C or anything, but if you actually just want really good gym training, you can follow him. He does not BS anything. He's just straight to the point, really simple, hates people who overcomplicate it. And then, I still can't. I'm gonna group together, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna group together, because they literally just train together, but no. I'm gonna group together Declan and I think it's Logan Ryan. They both get into the physiology a lot around hypertrophy stuff and that sort of thing as well. For conditioning based things or like more exercise physiology stuff, there isn't really, especially the exercise physiology, there isn't a big like social media presence for that just yet. But on the S&C side of things, I really just like JT, strength and performance is great, he's great. But there's not much else that comes to the top of my head. So that is my top 5, a bit spread out and not exactly a nice, neat and tidy top 5, but that answers the question. Ooh, I like this one. Okay, so our next question is, what are my thoughts on the enhanced games? Well, man, I think it is sick. Everyone has that little voice in the back of their head that says, I want to try steroids, I want to try steroids. So, you know, everyone can get their little dose. I think it's kind of silly because, actually, yeah, I love the idea of the enhanced games, but the reality is that every single athlete at the Olympics is on some sort of performance enhancing substance already. You can say they're tested all you like, but there's a way. There's a will and there's a way to do a cycle here and there, get increased gains, and then let it get out of your system. A P test is not very reliable. I think hair is the one that's actually highly reliable, but P just, like, it's only the past like week or something ridiculous like that. All right, I think that's all the thoughts I have. That James dude, the Aussie swimmer, he's a beast, but like he sort of copes about it as well. He's like, oh, you know, you still have to put all the hard work in. Like, gear doesn't do all the work. The gear doesn't do all the work message I always hate, because literally it is its own category. Like, it will give you otherworldly gains that are completely separate from your training. So you don't have, like, you literally don't have to train. You can just start taking whatever, testosterone or 100 different other things, and you'll start making incredible gains just sitting on your couch. But for a sport like that, where you also have to be really fit and have some pretty decent technique, then it's like, all right, you know, he's a previous Olympian or something like that. Anyways, besides the point. Next question. Thoughts on giving dietary advice? I normally like to keep it very brief. That's pretty much all I'm allowed to do. But my go-to tips is high protein, almost completely my go-to advice is to focus on whole foods, eat whatever you want, but just shrink the portions. And if that fails, then focus on protein, cut out saturated fats, and eat carbs. And also stay active. 10,000 steps a day helps with that energy flux. But it really is that simple. People just snack and overeat a ton. So if you focus on carbs and protein, it's almost impossible to overeat unless you really are like predisposed to this insane appetite. But if you're eating super high fat foods that aren't whole foods, then you are going to overeat, and you're going to be eating stuff that's just insanely calorie dense. Fat is insanely calorie dense. Avoid it at all costs if you want to be lean. And the people who say like, oh, you need it for hormones and omega-3s and omega-6s are right, but it really is overrated just how important they are. You need almost no fat to function normally. And anyone who says saturated fats are necessary is very silly. You do not need any saturated fats in your diet. It's all the unsaturated ones that are important. All right, next question, still from Chris. He clutched up and gave me 4 really good questions, so I appreciate that a lot. While I'm touching on that, please, when I put up Q&A, give me any question. It just helps me structure these sorts of videos so that I'm not blabbering as much. It helps me, help you. So please, if I put a Q&A sticker up, just put something in there. You're doing me a huge favor. On to the question. When should you train through pain? This is a great question, and it applies to everyone at some stage in their life. Everyone has pain at some point in their life, whether that's injury related or just literally you can have pain for no reason sometimes. So really simply, you just, as long as it's minor and doesn't get worse, you can train through the pain. But if you want to go one step further, you have the traffic light system where it's 0 to 4 is green, 4 to 6 is orange, and then anything above that is red, where you actually just always want to rest it. Green is always fine. Orange depends on if it gets worse or if it settles in the following days. So fairly simple answer on that one. I don't think I need to elaborate too much. I will quickly use my current situation as an example though. My hammy, as most of you should know, I kind of kept it on the down low because I was a bit depressed about it. My hammy tweaked last week. It's been sore. I was kind of chatting to someone about what do I do. And when you're trying to rehab something like that, you want to do everything you can to avoid atrophy while still allowing it to heal. So I started to do some yielding isometrics where I had, just as I was pushing as hard as I could while keeping that pain minor. I could feel it the whole time I was doing those isometrics, but I kept it minor. And if it started to get worse, I stopped straight away, and I haven't had any issues with that. So doing 3 sets of yielding isometrics for my very minorly tweaked hammy, and I've had no problems. It's feeling the best it's felt just over a week. So pain is not the be all and end all. You can push through it, and you normally actually should, to help get better faster. All right, next question from Tyler Donlan. Big shout out to T, surprised he dropped a question. We have, are box generally, here we go, wait. Are box squats better for improving running and jumping performance? Are box squats better than normal squats for improving running and jumping performance? I feel like we argued about this one time when I had a couple beers, now that I really think about it. But I'm just gonna answer honestly. So, short answer, yes, they are better. Long answer, they are better because they actually have a slightly lower range of motion, they're more concentric focused, and you can build strength in more specific ranges. Now, that isn't to say that box squats are bad, they're just to say that, that's not to say that regular squats are bad, it's just to say that box squats, for someone who isn't interested in actually squatting a lot, they just want to improve overall lower limb strength, box squats are an incredible choice. They're actually one of my go-tos now. I will always recommend trap bar deadlifts and box squats to anyone who's trying to build lower body strength, unless they want to do something else. Then I will say, let's do that. Simple as that. But yeah, having a much shorter eccentric phase and then much less range of motion means that you can get a better strength stimulus indirectly. Okay, so you're moving more weight and you're also creating less fatigue so that down the line you can train a little bit better as a whole. All right, on to our next lot of questions. This is from my sticker today. Lachlan Kennedy said, thoughts on online fitness coaches who do not have a Cert 3. Now, I thought he was taking a stab at me for whatever reason, but he definitely isn't. So, sorry, Lachlan. Coaches who it just really depends on the person, because I'll probably play devil's advocate here and say that those sort of Cert 3, Cert 4 courses a lot of the time have outdated information, and the average Instagram scroller who follows the right people and maybe does a bit of research on their own could know more than someone who has done only a Cert 3 and a Cert 4, doesn't follow the right people and doesn't do their own research. So it really depends on the person, but as a whole, you should have some sort of certification just so that you're more trustworthy from a purely professional standpoint. People are more likely to work with you when you're trustworthy and have some level of credibility. I would just say I don't like coaches who don't know what they're talking about and speak and somehow thrive purely off confidence, blind confidence, appealing to people's biases, and having like confirmation biases. So they're literally just telling people what they want to hear and saying it in the most positive, unrealistic way possible to get people to believe it, and then somehow retaining clients. I don't know how it works. Anyways, not a fan of those people, but in general, if you don't have a Cert 3, it depends. Majority of people who don't have a Cert 3 do online coaching probably do suck, but there's probably a few exceptions. All right, now the next one from Nimwads, Instagram handle Nimwads. He asks, what are the fundamentals of gym training programming? Oh, what are the fundamentals of exercise programming? That is another great question, has a very long explanation, but you can really easily break it down to the FIT principles. So frequency, intensity, time, and type. How often are you training? You generally want to train as often as you can and still recover. How intense do you want to train? That is going to be outcome dependent. What outcome are you trying to get? How intense do you have to train for it? Let's train at that intensity so we can get that outcome. Time, another one, it's very outcome dependent. You don't need to spend a lot of time sprinting to get faster, but you do need to spend a lot of time in zone 2 to get fitter. Type, again, outcome dependent. You need to do stuff that's specific to the outcome you want to get. If you want to get stronger, you need to lift heavy. You probably need to do resistance training. You cannot sprint and get stronger, but that's actually a horrible example. You cannot do, you can't do Pilates and get better at doing deadlifts. Let's just put it that way. Actually, you probably still can as well. If you want, oh my God, type. Oh, I need to be broader. Okay. And for type, you cannot get better. You can do that as well. Oh my God. You're not going to get fitter by lifting. You're not going to get stronger by doing a ton of running. So that's just about making sure you're training specifically. But those are your exercise prescription. Oh no, you said prescription. Ooh. Okay, well, I'll keep that in because it's going to be valuable for most people, I would hope. But exercise prescription, that's a good one as well. When you're trying to pick exercises, now I think this is what you mean, but when you're trying to pick exercises, it comes down to a few different categories or factors. You want exercises that you like, exercises that train the target muscle well, and then exercises that are easy to progress. So if you pick exercises that have a lot of coordination demand, they're going to be hard to progress after a certain point. And they're also probably not going to train the target muscle very well. So generally you want to pick muscles that are stable and very easy to perform. Then you want to pick exercises that you enjoy. So if you don't enjoy it, it's going to be hard for you to commit to it long term, and it's important that you stick to exercises long term so that you can continually get better at them. And I normally see this as a sort of compounding interest, where the better you get at an exercise, the better you can recruit motor units, and the more motor units you can recruit, the more tension that you're going to have on the muscle, the more muscle that will experience tension. Now, is there anything else that goes into exercise prescription? So that would be for you. If I'm choosing exercises for someone, I am thinking about, well, what are their goals? Do we want to have a very holistic view on things, or are we going to be quite minimalist? Or are we going to be quite maximalist? Are we trying to isolate every muscle in the are we trying to isolate every muscle in the body, or are we trying to just get it done in a short amount of time? So that's going to be compounds versus isolation and that sort of stuff. Where it really depends on time and preference and all sorts of things. But yeah, I would say for the most part, it's that first group where it's exercises that you like, exercises that train the target muscle well, and then exercises that are easy to perform and don't have a lot of coordination requirements. That was the last question. So that's our Q&A all done. I would love to do more of these, so seriously, please, whenever I put a Q&A sticker in, drop any question that you have. I love doing this sort of stuff. It gives me lots of structure so I can really give you some good information. I'm loving the YouTube so far. I think I'll start to come up with my own topics as well, of course, but let's try and do a Q&A every fortnight or so, because I want this to be helpful for you. The whole reason I'm doing it is so I can go into depth on relevant topics so you guys can actually get something out of it. I don't want to make shitty Instagram content that 500 people watch and then they piss off. Well, they watch it for 2 seconds. You know what I'm saying. Anyways, hope you have a good week. I should have this posted on Sunday, so have a good week. And don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Thank you.